Hey guys, I'm Figgy. Welcome to my Bookish universe. I'm going to do the newbie tag with the questions provided by Brenda C. But first, I just want to do a bit of an introduction about myself and the channel, why I've named it what I have. So first off, I've been working in bookshops for about 8 years, bookshops in various areas of the publishing industry. I have been reviewing books for about, well, it'll be 4 years in June. I am obsessed with books. I've been a lifelong reader. My house is lined with books. So the concept of the Bookish universe is that it's always getting bigger. There are never fewer books than there were before. So every day there's new books that come out, there are new books that we discover, books that have been around for ages that we find out, light years away. There are also books that disappear into black holes, books that we forget about, books that might disappear onto our shelves, or they get lent to friends and we never see them again, and sometimes we can remember them, sometimes we can't. So that's the concept. I am also obsessed with space, so I do read quite a few space related books. I just finished one called Space is Cool as Fuck, which was a really cool book. My telescope here, Princess Leia, and I went out the other night and took photos of the lunar eclipse, and I will insert some pictures into the video for you here. Why did you start this channel? I've been working in books, as I said, for such a long time. I am obsessed with books. I've got a lot of friends on Goodreads who are also obsessed with books, but you can never have too many people to talk about books with. And I did actually go for an interview at a publishing house after finishing up with another publishing house a little while ago. And this other publishing house said that my book reviewing would be a conflict of interest, so if I got the job, would I stop that? And I said no. So I didn't get the job, and I honestly feel like that's one of the better things to never happen to me, in that I'm glad that I didn't get it, because now I can be here with you guys booktubing. I also last year did a couple of things that were outside of my comfort zone. I did karaoke for the first time. I was on panels at Continuum for the first time, which is a fantastic convention which you guys should all attend if you live in Australia. It's in Melbourne every year on the Queen's birthday long weekend. It's all geeky stuff. It's not just books, but there is a sort of heavy twist towards books. Typically most years Amy Kaufman and Jay Christoph attend, and last year Sean and Maguire attended, and I got both of my Wayward Children books signed, as well as a couple of Mira Grant books. Yeah, so I was on panels for the first time at that convention. I did karaoke for the first time at that convention, surrounded by bookish people who are supportive and understand having social anxieties. And so I want to expand on that. I want to put myself outside my comfort zone again further. And I got this camera 10 years ago, and I used it for a couple of years, but it was mostly like social filming stuff. It wasn't filming myself. So I want to actually get into putting myself outside my comfort zone, finding a new family to add to the existing family, and just wanting to try new things, because those things that I did last year gave me such a thrill, and I felt more alive after doing them than I had in a very long time. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? Well, I have mentioned the space aspect. I would actually be interested in maybe getting an attachment for my video camera to attach to the telescope, attach my video camera to Princess Leia. If you guys would maybe be interested, it's something I'd have to follow up, but as I said, I've had the camera for 10 years, so they might not make a fitting. And I do a variety. I do everything from picture books to, through middle grade young adults, to sci-fi, horror, general fiction, non-fiction. I do a lot of science and word-related non-fiction. So I've got a book on my shelf at the moment called How We Talk, which is about the little bits and pieces, the idiosyncrasies of the English language and how we communicate as a people and how that came about, which I think is fascinating. And there's another one called The Voices Within, which is about how we think and how we hear the thoughts in our head. So I like that sort of stuff, the sort of science crossed with language nerdiness. What are you most excited about for this new channel? Like I said, putting myself outside my comfort zone, finding new people to talk books with. I also like the idea of having like a video record of what I've done, what I've hauled, what I've read, what I've thought about things. I mean, Goodreads has got a lot of my book records, and I've got Library Thing, which keeps a catalogue of everything that I buy and receive. I'm only going to be this age for a certain amount of time, and then it'll be gone and I won't have any records. So that's why I'm doing this. Why do you love reading? This is a really tough question to answer. I just don't really know life without reading. My dad has always been a very big reader. He's a big fan of Stephen King, but yet he would always have books in the house. And whenever I asked him what a word meant, he'd go look it up in the dictionary. And we had this big dictionary that was about that big and like that thick. And I'd have to flick through it and find the word. And yeah, so I've had that sort of love of words and that sort of exploration of them instilled in me from a young age. There are all sorts of things you can learn from books. You can put yourself in someone else's shoes. You know, you can read Own Voices books that give you an insight into the life that someone else has lived. I'm currently reading a book by an astronaut, so you know, you get insight on how amazing the space station is, but also what the pitfalls might be. So I like that, being able to live 1,000 lives within my one unambitious life. Let's be honest. What book or series got you into reading? I have a few. So from an early age I was reading Goosebumps. Not this one, because this is actually a reasonably new release, and I don't have the one that I did read, the first one that I ever read, but I will insert that here. So that was when I was really young. That was one of the first series that I ever read, and I have always been a reader, but I've had fluctuations. I've had periods of time where I haven't read for a month or two, or you know, after school there was probably, you know, I'd go 6 months without reading. The next one is The Starlight Crystal by Christopher Pike. This is not my original edition. This is an edition that I bought to replace it, but it's the same cover that I used to have. I devoured this book, and once I rebought it, I actually went back and read it every year for a good handful of years. It's the book that got me into science fiction. My dad has always had a love of science fiction and horror and things like that, but this is the book where I went, this is the book for me, and this is where I'm starting my journey with science fiction. There's clones, there's information being beamed into your head at super fast speeds, there's space travel, there's cryogenic sleep, I believe there's aliens. And yeah, so it's basically the main character, when we join her, has just come out of a learning session, and she's going into space with her father, and basically as she steps out of the library she sees this really attractive guy who comes out of the lake in scuba gear, and they start talking, and I think they might go on a date. And then as she goes to travel, like they write letters to each other, or she writes letters when she knows he's already dead. But there is a bit of time travel, and there's just everything sci-fi that you could think of is pretty much in here. I don't know if there's any artificial intelligence, but there's a whole bunch of just space and clones and yeah, everything cool. The next one is Replica by Marilyn Kay. This is one that I discovered it just before a camping trip, and we used to go camping a couple times a year with my stepmom, and so we discovered this in a shop, and I bought, I think, the first one or two. It's about clones. I love anything about clones, or zombies or aliens. So I would, because she would actually pump them out quite a bit, or maybe it was the fact that there were a few out when we discovered them, I would go and get a couple every time we went camping, and they sort of sparked my science fiction-y side while also appealing to the tween girl in me. She's got this birthmark and she's always been really good at things, and then she discovers that she is a clone. I can't remember if someone contacts her or what. This is not my original edition. I recently went on Better World Books and rebought as many of them as I could get. I got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 and 11, so I'm missing 4 and 7 and anything after 11. I actually don't know if Harry Potter is one of the ones that kick-started me back into reading. I think it's actually one that I was already back into reading at the time. So Ober-Newton by Isabel Carmody. In high school, my friends and I became obsessed with it. Basically, it's sort of a post-apocalyptic world, but it's almost got a fantasy-ish setting, and there was like a big war, radioactive chemicals. Basically, the world has been shaken up. There's all these misfits, which are people who have special talents like telekinesis, or can hear animals speak, or can travel on dreams and things like that. And so we read this for school, and then I told my mum that I needed the next book for school. It was part of the course, and she went out and bought me the next one, but it was actually books 2 and 3 in one book, and then the following one after that. So I think Mum kind of realised that I didn't need the whole series for school, but she went out and got them for me anyway. Basically, the main character is a misfit. She's in an orphanage. Her parents were burned for going against their leadership. I think they were burned. And she is taken away to this place called Newton, where they are seeking kids with special abilities, and that they're going to be experimented on or locked up or something. And it's this big castle full of these kids, and it's creepy, and there's, you know, stuff going on, and there are special abilities and the Hunger Games. So this is the edition that I read. I'd started working at a bookshop just before Mockingjay came out. I'd won a gift card for signing up a certain number of people to the email list or something, so I turned around and bought all 3 and read them in the space of about 4 days, and then after that I don't think I've looked back. I've never had a time of not reading since Hunger Games. After school there was a period of about 6 months to 18 months where I couldn't get into books. I was reading a book every so often, but it wasn't like I'd have massive reading droughts. And then I picked up the Hunger Games. What questions would you ask your favourite booktubers? So Jen Campbell is actually who got me into watching BookTube, and Simon at Savage Reads would be the other one. I mean, there are so many that I watch and there are so many that I enjoy, so it's really hard to pick favourites, but Jen being the first one who introduced me to it, and Simon being a friend of Jen's and having a similar sort of dynamic, would probably be the 2 that I would ask. They get books a lot in the same way that I do, I believe. They get a lot of review copies. So I would like to ask them, what's the most memorable book that turned up unsolicited that you loved? So for me, that was The Wolf Road by Beth Lewis. It was unsolicited. I read the back of it. It did not seem like me at all. It seemed like frontier sort of stuff, and I devoured it. And it turns out like it's sort of a post-apocalyptic thing, but it's basically, because people have no technology anymore, it's kind of set back to frontier times, but there's just so much more to it. So yeah, I'd like to know what books have really surprised them. What challenges do you think starting a BookTube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I know it might not seem like it because I've been chatting away for ages and I haven't gotten too self-conscious about it, but I think, well, I know that I am a very self-conscious person, and I get anxiety and things like that. So I think my biggest challenge is going to be feeling confident all the time to record myself, and then looking at the video going, okay, yes, that's good enough to put on the internet for everyone to see. And also I'm about to go into a very busy month. So from about the 14th of February to the 10th of, or the 8th of March, somewhere in there, I've got about 19 days straight of work. And that's not at one job. I work in a bookshop, I work as a nanny. I also am doing something on the side for the bookshop, like a planning element. I am also building my own company, and I'm also reviewing. So, but I don't count the reviewing, and I don't have any of the side company for the bookshop planned at the moment. So yeah, basically between bookshop and nannying, I've got 18 days straight. So that's not including reviewing or any of the other bits and pieces that I'm doing, or YouTube. So it's going to be a crazy month. When did you start reading? I kind of covered this before, and I think everyone else who's done this newbie tag has kind of said the same thing. I started reading when I was a kid. My dad introduced me from a young age. He would always read stories to me, and then I was always reading things when I was able to read. I was reading for myself. But yeah, I think I sort of kick-started at about 10, and then maybe at about 12 or 14, and then at 16, and then at 23. So I haven't really looked back since 23. So for the last 8 years, I've been reading constantly and upping my count every year, because I don't know if I get faster at reading or I get more decisive about books that I won't like, and so I go, nope, I'm going to put you aside and I'm going to read something else that I actually want to enjoy. So I'm reading the things that actually keep me engaged. So partially because I have been working with Scholastic for a while, and with the reviewing I've been getting picture books and kids books as well, and that kind of helps feed into my nannying roles as well. Where do you read? I read everywhere. I I read in bed, I read on the couch, I read outside. Sometimes I'll take like a blanket out and read out in the sun. If I get somewhere early, I will read there. If I drive to the shops or something and I'm feeling particularly anxious, I will actually sit in the car and read for a while before I go in. I read in the bath and the shower. You might ask how I read in the shower. Basically, I have my Kindle, which to be honest, I only really use in the bath, in the shower, and sometimes in bed when I need to have the lights off, but I want to keep reading. But yeah, so I have one of these little clear plastic bags, and I put my Kindle in there, and I clip it shut, and I fold that over. So I rest it on either the shower caddy or the shelf, and then I can just tap, as I finish a page. Sometimes it does get a bit foggy in the shower, but then I put water over it, and because it's all closed up, it doesn't get inside. And yeah, it keeps it safe and it keeps me reading. What kind of books do you like to read? I read everything except for romance and contemporary. I do read some contemporary. I don't completely cancel out contemporary, but I don't really read a lot of contemporary. Yeah, I don't really, there's nothing that I don't read, but I do read a lot of middle grade, young adult, science fiction, horror, and science fact. Those are probably my main genres, but I love picture books as well. So I don't know, I feel bad cancelling any of them out, but those are the areas that I read the most, so that's probably the best way to clarify it. So things that I would like to look at going forwards, I do want to go back and do a January haul, but I've got to wait for a book that I loaned out to a friend, and I want to do what I read in January, which I do have all of those books here. I had a bit of a moment there this morning when I couldn't find 2 of them, but I found them. It's all good. I also would like to obviously do those going forwards, do some most favourite, least favourite of all time, and best of 2017, worst of 2017, or almost disappointing of 2017. Yeah, so I'm going to do a haul for January, but let me know if you guys are interested in any further hauls, because I have notebooks and I keep track of what comes in and what day they come in, and when I've reviewed them, the title, the publisher, when I requested them, if I requested them, because sometimes I don't and they send things that I didn't ask for, and then when I posted my review and my rating. So I do have lists of, so that's January and that's December. So if you're interested, I can go back and do December. I can go back and do November if you want. And likewise, I also have records of what months I read things. So feel free to let me know, or please do let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see. I know that a lot of people do bookshelf tours. I don't know if I'm going to be physically able to do that because I've got like over 4,000. But if you are interested, let me know and I can do them by sections. You are currently propped up on the middle grade shelf. These are my box sets. Young adult is over there. Graphic novels and Aussie books and signed copies and things like that are over there. Picture books are here. In the other room I've got sci-fi, fantasy and horror and crime and general fiction, and I've got a shelf for just my proof copies. And in the kitchen there's non-fiction, and in my bedroom there's review copy shelves. But yeah, if you do want to see any of that, let me know. Let me know what sections you're interested in most, and I will tidy them up and film them for you. I am going to do an introductory walkthrough at some point, but again I have to tidy the house first and make sure the books are actually all on the right shelves, because, you know, I take books out to the kids I nanny for and then they get mixed up. So let me know. And what else was I going to say? Oh, I should probably explain before we get too far into it that I laminate my books, so sometimes that might make it a bit hard for the light to reflect on them properly, or sorry, might make the light reflect on them when you don't need that to. And oh, when I do hauls, so dates on the spine, for some reason I haven't put it on this one, but this is in March, so maybe that's why, because I knew it was so far out and I got it in like November. So yeah, let me know. Like, what I'm planning at the moment is just to do hauls based on what I get for review, because if I was to do the books that I buy and the books that I review and the books that I receive for review, you would be here all day. I would be here all day. You would be here all day too. Maybe. No, you'd stay for 10 minutes and then go away. So let me know if you're interested in a board like a purchased haul as well, because then I will do that maybe as a separate video. I'm also kind of thinking about doing like part way through the month hauls, so there's not so much in one month. But yeah, I've got like some months I will have 40 books come in, and some months I might only have 5, so I'll probably play it by ear a bit, unless you guys say you really want to see what I'm buying as well. Alright, so I think that's it. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Please let me know if there's anything you want to see or any questions that you have, and I will see you soon. Okay, thanks guys, bye. Okay, so I thought about it afterwards, and it might be worth showing you Princess Leia. This is her. Isn't she beautiful? She's about the same height as me, so you know, fun to try and get outside. Oh, there's my TARDIS. There's my TARDIS, and there's another TARDIS, and there's another TARDIS, and that's not all my TARDISes. So yeah, and oh, bookshelf shelves, book box set shelves. There we go. But yes, so these are my box sets, and there's some more on the side, and behind those I have some books that I've got like duplicates of because I don't have space on my shelves. So yeah, alright, so oh, and that's my reading chair, currently laden with the books that I've been showing you. Okay, cool. I will post this and see you guys soon.